graders. Okay, in our last lesson we were looking at equivalent ratios, and you could find the equivalent ratio by multiplying, going down the sides and seeing if they have the same multiplier on either side of the ratio. Or we talked about turning them into a fraction. So turning our ratios into a fraction to give them value, and then multiplying straight across to see if we ended up with the same multiplier on the top or on the bottom. Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be seeing how we can use a ratio table to find equivalent ratios. So we're still looking at equivalence, equal. So two equal ratios. But today we're going to be using a ratio table. Well, what is a ratio table? Well, let's talk about that. A ratio table is a tool used to organize and find equivalence. So using this table, we can determine if ratios are equivalent. We can find them and organize them, like organize our data. So ratio tables are used, they're a tool for organizing and finding equivalence. All right, so let's go ahead and look at what we're talking about here. So let's talk about triangles and sides. Okay, so let's say that I have a ratio, and in my ratio I am going to compare triangles to sides. That's what I'm comparing. And the very first ratio that I have shows that I have 1 to 3. So triangles is 1, sides is 3. We can use this information to organize in a data table and to find other triangles and their sides using this ratio. So let's make a ratio table. So a ratio table looks like this. It is a big rectangle. On the top we have our triangles. On the bottom we have sides. So we are comparing triangles to sides, triangles to sides. You can take triangles and you can take their sides and you can now find equivalent ratios using this starting ratio. Our starting ratio is 1 to 3. Okay, let's say that I want to find 2, 9, and 4. Okay, so let's say that I have a ratio table that looks like this. Well, I can figure out equivalent ratios by finding the change. So starting with my very first ratio of 1 to 3, when I look at this, if I take away the sides, it looks like a fraction. So I could make a fraction of 1 over 3, and I want it to equal 2 over what? What goes in the box there? Well, if we flip back to our equivalent ratios, we can see that we just multiplied to find what caused the change. So how do I get from 1 to 2? Well, from 1 to 2, I multiply by 2. So to keep this equivalent on the bottom, I also have to multiply by 2. So 3 times 2 gives me 6. So when I have 2 triangles, I have 6 sides. So I can use this idea of multiplying from 1 to 2 and multiplying by 2. And on the bottom, 3 times 2, and that gives me 6. So what goes in the box is 6. 1 to 3 is equivalent to 2 to 6. Now I can find how to get to 9. So going back to my initial ratio of 1 to 3, I can figure out how did I get from 3 to 9? Well, let's take a look at this. So to get from 3 to 9, so let's say I had 1 over 3, and I need it to equal something over 9. I can figure out how to do the change. So if I go 3 times 3, I get 9. So on the top, I also have to multiply by 3 to keep it equivalent. So 1 times 3 equals 3. So in the box, I put a 3 because 3 times 3 equals 9, and 1 times 3 equals 3. Okay, now in this last one, I have a 4. So I can go all the way back over here and figure out how did I get from 1 to 4? Well, 1 times 4 gives me 4, and 3 times 4 gives me 12. So 4 over 12 is equivalent to 1 over 3. We can give it a check here. 1 over 3 equals 4 over what? Well, I can figure this out by 1 times 4 gives me 4, and 3 times 4 gives me 12. So they are equivalent. So this tool right here allows us to just use the boxes to move our ratios forward and to find equivalence. We don't even have to do all of this. We could just write out the ratios down below. So let's do another one and see how that works. So let's compare frogs and toads. So we're going to compare frogs to toads. All right. The ratio table that they give me looks like this. So let me set up the ratio table for you. And in this ratio table, we are going to compare frogs and toads. Okay, we're comparing frogs to toads. And our first ratio that they give us is 4 to 6. Then they say we have 20 frogs, 90 toads, and 180 toads. Our job is to find what goes in column 2, 3, and 4. And so we can do this by multiplying from column 1 to the next one. So using the easiest ratio that we have. So I would look at this and I would say, okay, how do I get from 4 to 20? 4 times what gives me 20? Or I could say 20 divided by what gives me 4. Or I could just use what I have here and find the change. So 20 divided by 4 equals 5. So I know 5, 10, 15, 20. I can just multiply by 5. So if I multiply by 5 on the top, I need to multiply by 5 on the bottom to keep it equivalent in column 2. 6 times 5 gives me 30. So this means that when I have 20 frogs, I also have 30 toads. So let's try column 3. Let's try column 3. 90 divided by 6, because personally, I don't know what the ratio, I don't know 6 times what gives me 90. I can figure it out by doing 90 divided by 6. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say 90 divided by 6, or make it look like this, 90 divided by 6. Well, I know that 6 goes into 9 one time with 3 left over, right? So when I subtract, I get 3, and I need to bring down my 0, which is 30. So 6 goes into 30 5 times. Oh, well, that makes sense because 15, 30, 45, 60, 75, 90. Oh, that makes a lot of sense when I count by 15s. But if I don't know that in the top of my head, using some long division will help break that problem down. So 6 goes in, 6 times 15 gives us 90. So if I multiply by 15 here, I also need to multiply by 15 on the top to keep it equivalent. So we're going to go 15 times 4 gives me, that's 20, and that is 60. So when I have 60 frogs, I also have 90 toads. That is a lot of ribbons. All right, let's check this last column here and see what we get. Okay, so I don't know about you, but 180 is double 90. So I'm pretty sure that this is going to be 30 is going to be our multiplier, but we can double check it just to be safe. So 180 divided by 6. 6 goes into 18 3 times. That gives us 18. Drop the 0, and that gives us 30. So 6 times 30 is our multiplier there. 4 times 30. So let's come over here, and we're going to do 30 times 4. Sorry, that gives us 0, and that gives us 4 times that is 12, so 120. So we have 120 toads when we have, or frogs when we have 180 frogs. This table right here helps us keep all of our information organized and allows us to just find equivalent ratios from here to here. Now, I could also just write the ratios for this problem. So if they asked me to write the ratios, all I would do if I'm writing the ratios, I'm taking the top and the bottom and turning them into ratios. So 4 over 6 becomes 4 to 6. 20 over 30 becomes 20 to 30. 60 over 90 becomes 60 to 90. And my last one, 1 over 20, 120 over 180 becomes 120 to 180. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 ratios that I was able to make straight from this ratio table that I used to help me organize my work. All right, 6th graders, it is your turn to use a ratio table to find equivalent ratios. So here is your try it. So here's your try it. Your try it is going to be comparing miles to hours. Oh, no, I don't want to do that one because we're going to do that one next week. Let's get you a different one. How about cars to trucks? Okay, so we're going to compare cars to trucks. And we're going to start with a ratio table that looks like this. Cars, trucks on the bottom because trucks come second. So cars first, it goes on the top, trucks second. All right. The numbers that they give you to start with are 2 to 5. They want to know when we have 10 trucks, how many cars do we have? And when we have 6 cars, how many trucks do we have? And then I want you to write the ratios. Okay, so first find equivalents and then write the ratios just like we did up here. All right, 6th graders, go ahead and hit pause right now so that you don't hear me solving the problems. All right, so how in the world did I get from 5 to 10? Oh, well, 10 divided by 5 is just 2. So I multiplied by 2. So on the top, I'm going to multiply by 2. 2 times 2 is 4. And that gives me 4 over 10. On the next one, how do I get from 2 to 6 so that I can fill in this hole right here? 2 times 3 gives me 6. So on the bottom, I'm going to multiply by the same thing. 5 times 3 gives me 15. So my ratios now are 2 to 5 from column 1, 4 to 10 from column 2, and 6 to 15 from column 3. All right, 6th graders, how did you do on your try-its? And at the top or somewhere on your paper, I want you to answer your essential question. How can you use a ratio table to find equivalent ratios? And then in the box, I want you to tell me, what is your level of understanding right now? 1, I am still lost. I'm going to go back to the Google Meet and ask for help. 2, I kind of understand this. I'm getting the hang of it. I just need some extra practice. Or 3, I totally understand how to use the initial ratio and multiply or divide to fill in the blank. All right, 6th graders, it is now time for you to head on over to Google Classroom to see your practice work. And as always, thank you so much for your hard work and make it a great day the Cougar way.